All right. What a crowd. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning in person here at the University of Waterloo. And if you're joining us virtually as well, we're super excited to have you for our grade 10 information session. So with this session, we're going to try and keep it as general as possible and really talk about what are the frameworks or things that you could be thinking about as a grade 10 student when you are thinking of what potential programs or universities you might want to go to in the future, and maybe even help direct you and guide you to what kind of courses you should be selecting for grade 11 and 12. But before we get too ahead of ourselves, let's introduce ourselves. So my name is Dennis. I'm a recent graduate from the University of Waterloo, where I studied biomedical sciences, and that's within the Faculty of Science. And currently my role at the university is as an undergraduate recruitment specialist, where I have the privilege of traveling across Ontario, speaking to prospective students and family members, and getting them excited about their journey at Waterloo and how it can align to their future career aspirations as well. And I swear I have more than one outfit. I know I'm wearing the same thing that's in this photo here, but Aman, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Iman Khan. I use she, her pronouns. I am a current student here at the University of Waterloo. I'm in my third year in the Honors Arts program, majoring in political science, and I absolutely adore it. I'm also in the co-op program here at Waterloo, which means I get to do really cool stuff like this because I work as a content marketing associate for the university.
And earlier, I was going to mention we have two keys for success tonight. Number one, we're going to provide you with a very fun, informational, and interactive session. And then the second key to success, Canada is going to beat the US later today in the final for the Four Nations. There we go. Let's go. But first, we do want to start with a territorial acknowledgement. So we do want to acknowledge that at the University of Waterloo, much of our work takes place on the traditional territory of the neutral Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee peoples. Our main campus is situated on the Haldimand Tract, which is the land granted to the Six Nations and includes 6 miles on either side of the Grand River. And our active work towards reconciliation takes place across our campus through teaching, research, learning, community building, and is housed within our Office of Indigenous Relations.
So we are super fortunate to have an amazing group of colleagues, professors, and students here to help you guys start preparing for your university journey. I know that for both students and parents, this can be a bit of a nerve-wracking time. So we're hoping tonight can ease those nerves a little bit and give you guys some insight into what the next few years are going to look like. But before we get into that, I wanted to play a little bit of a game with everyone. So, Dennis, they say that a picture is worth 1,000 words. But how many words do you think an emoji is worth?
1,000?
No.
1,001?
No. Well, okay, I guess technically you're right. An emoji could have a million different meanings. But for tonight, let's just try and stick to one. So the game we're going to play is called Emoji Pictionary. We're going to put a bunch of emojis up on the screen, and you guys basically have to guess what they are or what they mean. So we have 4 categories for everyone and a special jackpot category. So if you are joining us virtually, make sure to play along, see how many you can get. And if you're here in person, bring the energy, bring the noise, because if you bring the energy, Ping Warrior might just bring you some swag.
Yeah, let's go. All right. Boom. All right, let's start with the first one. So students, maybe you're just coming out from geography class. Parents, maybe it's been a couple years since you've done some geography. We're going to start off with a little country and try to ease right into it. Just start shouting out some things. What do you think?
Wow, Dennis, see, I told you that was going to be way too easy for these academic weapons. Let's try something a little bit more difficult.
Do you want to toss it? Maybe, I think we'll go middle. Yeah, see what that arm's like, warrior. We've got some heavier items later. It's okay. But yeah, it is Greece. So everybody did great there. All right, that was a quick little warm up. Let's get into it. We still think Hunger Games? Are we sure? We're sure? Yeah, it's Hunger Games. Taking Warrior, another one. Okay, for this next one, you might have to think outside the box, or should I say outside of this world? It is Alice in Wonderland. Warrior, maybe we'll go on that side there.
Okay, this next one is a little bit more difficult. This, this next one's a little bit more difficult. So Dennis, if you don't get it right away, don't get too emotional.
Inside Out? It is Inside Out. Warrior, yeah. There we go. What a toss. There we go. Okay, so we did some movies, we did some countries. Now, parents, you're definitely going to know these popular sayings, but students, let's see if you can compete with some parents in the crowd as well. What are we thinking? I heard the needle in a haystack a couple times. I would also agree, needle in a haystack. Big arm, toss it. Next one. There you go. Oh, this one's stumping some people. We're gonna have to get loud. I heard it. It's somewhere in the back, King Warrior. You're gonna have to really throw out your arm there. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Okay, this category is a little different from the rest of them. So as a little hint, just remember to read from left to right.
They're too good with this. They're too good. I think admissions is going to have some difficulty picking who gets in for the next class. There we go. Madagascar was the right answer. And for the final jackpot prize, this is really what you've been working towards. This is going to be the most difficult one that we have tonight. It is not going to be that easy, and it comes with our biggest prize yet, our Waterloo Warrior hoodie. Everybody ready? Ooh, we'll give some people some more time. I heard Waterloo Engineering. I've heard University of Waterloo. Anything else? Warrior Goose, I heard a little bit. So King Warrior, it's got to be the University of Waterloo. That's why we're here tonight. Thank you, King Warrior, for being a part of this game. Thank you so much. Big round of applause for King Warrior. There you go. And if you like the vibe so much and you like how Iman and I are co-hosting this, then you definitely don't want to miss our Hello Warrior podcast, which you might have already watched a couple of episodes, but we are featured on Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, as well as Rogers TV. So we do a deep dive into all things University of Waterloo and really getting you excited to be a future warrior and venture off into things like admissions, campus housing, co-op, student life and experience, and so much more. So we have a lot of fun games and interactive elements on our podcast running on a pretty regular basis, and we're just wrapping up season 2 right now.
So we've got a lot of exciting stuff planned for you guys tonight. I wanted to give a little bit of a breakdown on what we're doing. We're going to start off with a really amazing keynote speaker who's going to give everyone a little bit of insight into what to do to start preparing for this journey. And then we're going to have some staff come in to give some advice on admissions and financing and give you a kind of behind the scenes look into what you need to do. And then we're going to have a really amazing student panel to answer all questions about student life and what's it like to be a student here at Waterloo. And then we're going to end everything off with a Q&A. So if you have any questions that you still don't have answered after the presentation, you can ask them at the Q&A. We also have a Q&A going on virtually. So if you have questions, you can also ask online. And if for some reason your questions don't get answered during this presentation, we also have the information fair going on in the Haggie Hall Hub until 8:30, so you can get all the rest of your questions answered there.
Perfect. So we're going to try and keep this presentation as general as possible. So we're going to provide you with a framework for what you can think about when you are trying to select and choose which universities or programs you might want to attend. We will add in some things here and there from the University of Waterloo, just because that's how we have so many examples, but we'll try and keep it as general as possible. But let's say you know exactly what program you want to go into, or you know that you want to become a Waterloo Warrior, then there are other avenues that we can help answer your questions, whether that is at the fair later on, through the podcast, through email, and then as well, we also have our March open house happening on March 22nd, so that's a Saturday. There'll be campus tours running. You can chat with current students, professors, staff, faculty, and so much more to really see what it's like to be a Waterloo student and to get all of your specific questions answered.
And without further ado, let's get started with the night. I'd like to introduce Associate Professor Dr. Mark Hurwitz.
Hello. Hello, Mike. Hang on just a second. Mike, testing. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? And whoa, I think that was my mustache. Can you hear me now? Gone all weird on me. Okay, we'll just restart this. Yeah, I do. While we're waiting, by the way, if I still need a few more volunteers for people to come up and be on the stage. So you can either come up with Robor or Annie over there. We just need a few more people. Okay. Wow, what a shy bunch. Don't you love live? Who knows what's going to happen? Okay. Thank you. Okay. Awesome. Okay, and we're off. Yeah. Business department, business and entrepreneurship department inside of engineering, although we actually work for the whole university and we get students all across campus. And so I teach both entrepreneurship and I teach leadership. So it's great fun. And what I'm going to do with you today is something a little different. You've seen all that stuff there. I've got a bunch of degrees. I spent a long time at university. And true, but don't tell anybody this, kind of a secret, I didn't actually graduate from high school. But that's a story for another day. Okay, so I know that we've collected some people who are willing to come up on stage. So those of you who have agreed to do that, please come on up now and stay as two separate groups. So those of you on the left here, just come on up and stand over here. And those of you on the right, come on, stand up over here on this side. So come on up. It's going to be fun. We're gonna play a game. Can I just see the cards for a second? I just want to make sure. Okay, cool. And Annie, can I see your cards for a second? Okay. Okay, that's cool. Does anybody else want to play? Would you like to come play this game too? Sure. Okay, here, give him a card. Anybody else? One of you two want to come on up? It'll be fun. Come on up. This is your first university experience. It's time to go for it. Okay, nicely done. All right. Okay, so this is an experiment. And it's one of the things that we do at university, which is a little bit different than high school. And you're all going to be my research associates. Okay? So what I'm going to do in just a second is I'm going to ask both groups to do an activity. And I want you to watch what's happening in both groups, because I'm going to then ask you a question. What did you observe? What did you notice? What's similar about the two groups? What's different about them? So you all got that? You're my research associates, and you are my participants in this activity. Okay, I've got one rule for all of you. You've all been given a card, right? You've all seen the card. Haven't shared it with anybody else, I hope. And it all has a role on it. So you all understand what the card says. And I want you to play the role, like pretend this is theater and that you're acting the role and you're big, you got a whole stage here to fill. So I want you to really embrace the role. I love the cut of your jib. That's perfect. Okay? So that's the number one rule. The number one rule is to own the role, no matter what else you do. Got it? Okay. So here's the game that we're going to play now. And the game is a little less important than playing the role. So I want you to make sure you play the role first. All right, so come on up on stage. So you're all up on stage. Come on up. You can gather together as a group. There you go. Okay, that's it. Okay, so stop about there. Come on up, everybody. And I am going to give you 90 seconds to do something. Are you ready? Are you all ready? A little bit louder. Are you all ready? All right, here we go. So here's the activity that I would like you to do. Clicker. Okay, so this is the audience's mission. And here we go. You are going to organize yourselves within your group according to who had the longest journey to get here. Ready, set, go. Okay, yes, well done. Wow, and you did it even faster than I expected. So first of all, let's give everybody a round of applause for that. And now I would love to hear from you all in the audience. What did you observe in the two groups? Just shout it out. Okay, what did you observe leadership in which group? In both groups. Did it look the same to you in both groups? It was louder on this side. Interesting. Okay, and this side was quieter. Okay, so this appeared to be more of a group. This was more collaborative and this was a bit more chaotic. That's okay. Yeah. Any other observations that you might have had? This one formed the line first. Okay, cool. But they finished at the same time. Interesting. How did it feel? What do this group? Where does this group end, by the way? Is this? Okay, okay, okay. So how did it feel to be in this group?
Organized.
Pretty organized. Cool.
Nice to have like just a couple of people that doing everything so we can
Oh.
see what we're doing.
Nice to have a. So who took the lead in this group? Okay, so interesting. What did your card say? Yeah, you can tell me now. You said leader, but you didn't lead.
Didn't lead.
Oh, what
How
did your card say? Boss. What did your card say?
Leader.
Leader,
Leader.
leader, boss,
Those are-
leader. And how many of you actually took on the leadership role? Meh. Interesting, eh? Let's go see what happened in this group. What was your card? Leader. Okay, what was your card? Follower. 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 All the way along. Oh, so thank you all. Thank you for participating. You can all go sit down if you like, but give your cards to the people assistants on the way. Kind of fun, right? And so one of the things that I will talk to my students about in this is how did it feel to be part of the group? To what extent did you feel emboldened to actually be the role that you were supposed to be? Sometimes, for example, the leadership groups will actually break out into arguments and they'll because everyone's a leader, right? How effective is that if everybody is a leader? I know that you're being told everyone needs to be a leader all the time. And sometimes it works out well, but it only worked out well because some of the people didn't actually take on the leader role, right? They decided, I don't need to lead right now. Someone else is doing a good job. I'll step back and be a follower. And you noticed it was very organized in this group. This group always finishes, by the way, when you've got one leader and lots of followers, because it's very clear there what everybody's role is. You don't have to discuss it. People don't have to think about it. And this is the kind of thing that we do here at university that you don't do as much of at high school. And it's what I want you to bring. I mean, the University of Waterloo is what's called an R1 research institution. That means we're research intensive. In fact, we were recently ranked 97th in the world in terms of our reputation as a university. That's in the entire world. And it's based on partly on our research and partly what I do, which is teach entrepreneurship. Raised over $10 billion for the ventures that have come out of the University of Waterloo. That puts us 21st in the world in entrepreneurship. And it's because when you come here, when you come to a really good university, when you come to the University of Waterloo, sure, sometimes you'll be sitting in the classroom listening to the sage on the stage, but at other times you're going to be doing research. You'll be watching what teams do. You'll be trying to understand what makes for a successful venture. You'll be researching robotics or whatever it happens to be that you're interested in. It's what makes universities so incredibly special. And I think it's what's going to make your time here at the University of Waterloo incredibly special. So thank you again to all those participants. Thank you to the audience. And thank you to the University of Waterloo for giving me this opportunity, and I'm hoping giving you this opportunity as well. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Mark. That's awesome. Thank you, Mark, so much for that interactive element that we had there. It was so great to see the two groups and then how they were working with one another. And I think that last part that you echoed as well about how research intensive we are and the focus on hands-on learning and hands-on experience that we have at Waterloo really is a central focus for us. And especially my time as an undergrad student, especially being in science, I was in a couple different research labs as part of my undergraduate experience. So I had that opportunity to work with professors and work in academia as well as research as well. So thank you so much for that. Now, we've been kind of preluding and talking all about this general framework that we'll be using for the rest of our presentation to help guide you towards how you're going to choose your universities and programs that you want to in the future. And that acronym that we're going to be using and referring to all the way through the night is going to be called PLACES, which consists of 6 different pillars. It's going to be program, location, admissions, cost, experience, as well as supports. So Aman, take it away.
So this first pillar is programs. So when it comes to starting your university journey, the first thing you want to decide is what you want to study. So there's a couple ways you can go about this. A really good place to start is by discovering what you're really passionate about in your everyday life. What are your hobbies? What are your interests? What are you interested in studying further? What kind of courses in high school are you really enjoying right now at the moment? And find programs that have those kinds of things incorporated within them that are along those same lines, because you're going to be studying this for a while, so you want to make sure it's something you're passionate about. Another thing is if you have a specific career in mind that you want to do in the future, you might want to backtrack a little bit and see what undergrad programs you would need to be in to easily transfer into that career one day. But before you have your heart too set on any program, be sure to do your research, because while most universities have the typical English, chemistry, biology, all those programs that we know and love, there are also hundreds of super unique and cool programs that you've probably never heard of. We've got medicinal chemistry, geological engineering, sports and recreation business, and those are just to name a few. There are so many more. It's also not just about the subject. Think about what makes a program unique. Does it have the opportunity to be a little bit flexible? Can you add a specialization or a minor? Can you go abroad or do an exchange somewhere else in the world? Maybe that's something that you're interested in. Is there an option to an internship or a co-op along with your program? These are all things you want to heavily consider before making your decision. So do your research, go through those university view books, go through those university web pages, and be sure to thoroughly research your programs before you decide if you want to apply to them.
And speaking of programs, here at the University of Waterloo, we have over 100 programs for you to choose from across our 6 different faculties. So that being the Faculty of Arts, Engineering, Environment, Health, Mathematics, and lastly, our Faculty of Science. Now, you may have noticed that I skipped over or didn't really talk about business, and this is just because we do business at Waterloo a little bit differently. Instead of having a dedicated Faculty of Business, business is actually spread out among all 6 of our faculties. So maybe you want to study chemistry or environment or something within the arts field. You can pair that with a biology specialty, and then that allows you to get expertise in both of those domains and areas. And on top of that, we have a really cool partnership with Laurier University, where you can do a double degree, either getting your BBA and getting your Bachelor's of Business Administration at Laurier, and then either your CS or math degree at Waterloo. But think of your faculty as your academic home base. This is where you have most of your classes, your academic advisor is there. You'll meet lots of your friends and future students. So if you're thinking about things in the social sciences, humanities, culture, history, etc., then maybe you want to go into the Faculty of Arts, or maybe you want to revolutionize prosthetics and new pacemakers for humans. Then you might want to go into biomedical engineering, or if you want to work with things that are a billionth of a meter or a nanometer, then you can go into nanotechnology engineering at Waterloo. Maybe you want to change policy and legislation or even map forest fires. You can go into the Faculty of Environment. Health is quite unique because we have some amazing programs, and one of which allows you to actually access our human cadaver lab right from first year, right from day one, where you get to look at bones, muscles, organs, tissues, and everything in between right from day one. And then we're also very unique with the Faculty of Mathematics because we are the only Faculty of Math in all of North America. So you will graduate with a Bachelor's of Math degree, and then you can study things like data science, actuarial science. You can go into things like pure and applied mathematics, as well as something that's really cool, which I've never heard before, but it's called combinatorics and optimization, used by companies like Amazon, Uber, Tesla, and even airline companies as well. And then lastly, my home faculty, the Faculty of Science. It's really about exploration and discovery. You get a lot of hands-on learning and lab experiences, and it allows you to go into areas like medicine, pharmacy, optometry, dentistry, and more, with also the addition of the physical sciences, whether that's chemistry, like Aman said, medicinal chemistry, or even physics and astronomy.
Okay, and like I said, one thing you really want to be noting when looking into your programs is if they have a co-op program. A lot of students choose Waterloo because so many of our programs have co-op embedded into them, and co-op is a really great way for students to gain career experience, get paid relevant work experience while completing their university degree. So there are a couple universities that offer co-op, but Waterloo has the world's largest co-op program of its kind, and it's kind of world-renowned for it. So co-op at Waterloo typically looks like alternating between 4 months being on a study term and doing school, and then 4 months working full-time as an employee for whatever organization you are employed at. Co-op is really great because you end up graduating with up to 6 different job experiences, up to 2 years of paid relevant work experience, and a whole network of opportunities and connections that you can take with you into the job force. Co-op students also typically make anywhere between $9,600 and $22,500 in their first co-op term, with the opportunity to make even more in consecutive co-op terms. So it's a really great way to pay for university if that's what you would like to use that money for, or you could rack it up in your savings if you already have a savings account for university. And because you get so much great work experience and networking opportunities during the co-op program, Waterloo co-op grads typically graduate, and within 6 months, they have more job opportunities and higher salaries than the average grad. So a lot of great benefits to co-op, and it's something that you should seriously consider in the programs that you're looking into.
Amon, I think that was a mic drop. There's so many stats in there, so many great things that Waterloo has to offer. But what acronym are we working with again? Shout it out. Places. There we go. So now we're on to locations. So maybe you want to be in a downtown, more urban center. Maybe you want to choose the University of Toronto or even Toronto Metropolitan University. Maybe you want a campus that's more spread out or a more centralized enclosed campus like the University of Waterloo, Laurier, as well as Guelph. Or perhaps you want to go the furthest you possibly can in Ontario, take a flight all the way up to Thunder Bay where you study at Lakehead University. So there really are a whole bunch of different locations. And one of the biggest tips that I can give is you definitely want to visit these campuses first, and you want to get tours of them to make sure that you can visualize yourself being there at least for the next 4 to 5 years.
Okay, and once you've decided what you want to study and where you want to study it, the next thing to think about is admissions. How are you going to get into that program?
And for that, I'm very welcome to bring up Andre Jardin, who is the Associate Registrar of Admissions and responsible for undergrad admissions at the University of Waterloo. He is an arts alum and has spent over 20 years dedicated to recruiting and admitting the next incoming class. So thank you, Andre, for having us. Thank you.
Hear me okay on this mic? There we go. It's one of my favorite nights. It's a great group every year. And it's kind of a fun night because you're not stressed out in your grade 12 year about getting in, but you're starting to think about it and you're here. So that's a great first step. So tonight I want to give you some good admissions information. You don't have to remember all the details. We just kind of want to get you on the right path. And I want to dispel some of the myths that are out there as well. Make sure that you understand what admissions does. And I can start by saying we have an amazing team at Waterloo. If you call us, we will answer the phone. If you email us, we'll answer within a day or two. So we want to give you good information. And please come to us for your information. We work really hard to make sure that our website is up to date, that we're giving you good information. Please don't go through just your friends and social media. Don't believe all the things you hear out there. And it does vary by university. So you definitely want to touch base with the different universities to make sure you're getting the right information. So how does admissions work? So we mentioned that we have about 100 different programs at Waterloo. So for every single program, we have targets. So we have a domestic target, so the number of Canadian students that we can take, and we have an international target. The domestic target is set with the government. So we admit all the Canadians that we're allowed to admit, and then we add some amazing international students from all over the world. So at Waterloo, you're looking at about 80% international, 80% domestic and 20% international. That would be the flip of what you're hearing in the news. So we are a global institution. We are world ranked in so many things. And part of what adds to that is having such an amazing group of students from all over the world, and you gain from those experiences. So when you're applying, you're competing against Canadian students for Canadian spots, international students for international spots. Okay, so that's an important thing to know right out of the gates. Typically, the admission criteria are exactly the same. That's the other thing. We are looking for qualified students no matter what, because our main goal is to make sure that you're going to be successful by the time you graduate. So we do that really well. And what drives that? Well, there's a few things. How many spots do we have? So we're the largest university in the world for computer science at the undergrad level. So we take in over 300 students, but we get over 8,000 applications. So that drives up how we look at students and where the cutoffs are going to be. And then for other programs, we might have a lot of seats and we might be able to take in more students. So it's just a slightly lower criteria. So the cutoffs do not drive everything. It is also societal interest. So right now, if you look at health sciences, we just came out of COVID. Thank goodness we're all back here in person. We're starting to normalize a little bit. But during COVID, we saw a huge spike in interest in health sciences. So going into COVID, we had cutoffs kind of in the low 80s for health sciences. By the time we finished COVID, we had gone up 168% in the number of applications we had. Young people like yourselves saw the relevance of health sciences and really were interested in the careers and the futures that were there. And what that does is it drives up our admission criteria. So we went from low 80s into the low 90s, and we've stayed there. So again, it depends on the people in this room. This year, we might have a class that is more interested in computer science than last year, and the criteria might be a little bit different. So it is dependent on many things, but it is largely driven by the class of students, how many applications we have, and how many spots we have available. So what do you need to get ready for that? Well, almost all universities are looking for the same thing. And in Ontario, we have about half of Canada's universities. So you have a lot of choice. And we're looking for your best 6 U or M level courses. So university or mixed level. There are college courses. Most universities, though, are focused on the U and M level. So your best 6, and that includes your required courses in most cases. So I'll give you 2 ends of the spectrum. So for engineering, it's a regulated profession. You have 5 required courses out of 6. So you got the 2 math, physics, chemistry, English. So 5 out of 6 are already chosen for you. We'll take that next one that's the highest. If you're applying to honors arts, where I went to Waterloo, English is the only required course. So they take your next 5 highest. So it does vary by program. And you want to give yourself opportunities for different choices and to be successful. So I wouldn't encourage you to take too many courses, but if you only take 6 U or M level courses, all your eggs are in that basket. You better do well in those courses and you better pass them all because that's going to generate your average. But if you take 8, 9 courses, you have a few that you can play with, and then we can draw from your best courses. So as you're looking at things right now, you want to be thinking about what courses are required for the areas I'm interested in, and make sure that you're taking the courses, especially in grade 11 next year, and getting ready for grade 12 so that you have the right courses. Because we do encounter students, okay, you might not know exactly what you want to study, but you want to have an idea. Do you need the math courses or do you not? Do you need 2 sciences or just 1? Make sure you do a little bit of research. That's why you're here, is to find out some of that so you can pick those right courses, and then you'll feel more prepared in grade 12, and hopefully you won't be scrambling to fill a gap. So what are the admission requirements? So at Waterloo, we start in the high 70s. So you do hear about some of our most competitive areas being in the 90s, but actually the majority of our programs admit starting in the low 80s. And it, again, varies by faculty, by program, and year to year. So we start in the high 70s and we go right up to computer science is one of the most competitive areas in Canada. You're looking at probably a 95 average or better. And so when you're applying to some of these programs, I can say that all of our applicants are amazing. And we believe that you'd all be successful. But again, we have to make some choices. So we are focused on giving you the best information we can, but we can't tell you 83% and you're going to be in, because it's going to depend on the year that you're applying. How many applications do we have? How many seats do we have? Did the targets change? That's what's going to drive where we cut off. So we do tell you low 80s, mid 80s, low 90s. Most of our programs also are based strictly on your average. So those best 6 courses, including required courses. But where we have a lot of competition and limited seats, we start to add some extra layers. So beyond grades, what do we look for? So again, in most areas, it's just grades. But if you look at our faculties of math and engineering, they both required what's called the admission information form. So that's a supplementary form where we ask you questions about you. So we want to know about you. There's no trick to it. The honest answer when people say, how do I write the perfect AF? There's no secret. You just answer the questions. They're about you. I hope you know about yourselves and that you can speak to yourselves. They're also short answer, so they're not big essays. I think it's like 150 word limit on our questions. The questions are based on research that connect to good, positive outcomes in university studies. So we have a scoring scheme that we use. So based on how you answer, there's a score that's applied to that, and that score gets added to your average. It's also a great chance for us to get to know you a little bit better, and it is pretty amazing seeing the diversity of answers that we get. So one of the things that we also hear is, are you only looking for sports and clubs and teams? Of course, Most students are involved in things inside the school and outside of the school, but it's actually designed to get to all kinds of lived experience. So maybe you're helping look after a family member, whether it's elder care or siblings. Maybe you were working part-time to already help save and pay for school. Maybe you're a high-level athlete. Maybe you play an instrument at a grade 9 or 10 level. What we want to know is, what are you doing outside of the classroom, outside of the grades, because we have all of that information. And that's what helps us to distinguish students with similar grades from each other. So again, our goal is to admit as many students as possible, but we do have those numbers that we need to hit. So what does that mean? We also just apply a little bit of math and a little bit of just, it still amazes me, it's a little bit of magic, I think, in the background. So if I ask parents here tonight, do you know exactly which university your child's already thinking about or what they're going to study? The answer is often no. We look at about 70,000 students a year to get just under 7,000 starting students. And somehow we're within a percent or two of where we want to land as far as numbers. So when we're looking at applications and we're trying to decide how many spots to allocate, it's not about you as an individual. So whether you rank as first choice or fifth choice, that doesn't change whether or not we're going to give you an offer. But we have a lot of good information that feeds into how many offers do we need to make to get the number of students that we need for that program. So in some programs, it might be it's 4 offers to get 1 spot. In another program, it might be 15 offers. So it's kind of all of you together. It's the applicant pool that decides how many offers we have to give out to get the number of seats that we want. So it is a pretty transparent process. We're not going to tell you how we score the supplementary form, or else there's no point to it. But again, we do tell you exactly what courses we're looking for, how we calculate our average, and how we add those other pieces in. We also have some other areas like architecture, where they do a précis, so they do a written component, and they do an interview, and they also have a portfolio. If you're going for pharmacy or optometry, so there's the medical school aspects there, then there's additional components. So it's all on our website. For most areas, though, it is just your grades, and for math and engineering, you definitely have the admission information form. So how do you apply? Well, one of the great things, as I mentioned, when we have half the universities in Ontario, we want to make it a student-friendly experience, because that's a lot of choice, and we don't want you to be paying a lot of money for all your applications. It's still expensive, but we try to consolidate that. So we have what's called the Ontario University Application Center. You'll get 3 choices for the base fee that you pay. It could be 3 choices at Waterloo, it could be 3 different universities. And then you can pay for additional choices. So it's up to you how deep you go. We have some students that apply to 15 different places. Most stick to the 3 or 4. And basically, for that application, you're going to fill in your information. It goes to all the universities to which you applied. And if you're in Ontario, all your grades are going to come to us automatically. So you don't have to chase anything. Your schools will upload your grades regularly. We get grades every day. And then we do our admissions decisions in big rounds. If you're tuning in online from out of province, or if someone came a long way today, I didn't know what the farthest one was in the line there, then what we have is a team that actually looks for equivalencies. So we look at systems of study, over 100 different systems of study all over Canada and all over the world. And we're looking for the same equivalent courses and grades. So we'll take an IB grade of 1 to 7, turn it into a percentage. We'll take A levels, all these different systems of study. Our team is trained in how to equate that to the Ontario system so that we're comparing apples to apples, and admissions is as fair as possible. But for Ontario, it's great because your grades come in automatically, and we will make decisions as soon as we have enough information to do that. And I'm going to turn it over for cost, but I will be coming back up on the stage to answer questions that you have, and I can stay afterwards for a little bit too, because I'm sure there's lots of specific questions.
Thank you, Andre. Yeah, big round of applause for Andre. I know later we'll probably have a lot of questions during our Q&A for you, so stay tuned for that. And I like what you said earlier. I like to call it, a little bit of math, a little bit of magic. It's the M&M special. So next off, we're going to go into cost. So we know that going to university is an investment in yourself and your future. And that's why we want you to be prepared and to be thinking about these expenses before they come around. And so we have an amazing person from our finance department who's going to be able to talk on all things finance.
Yes, I'd like to introduce Nancy Hyde, who is the Director of Student Awards and Financial Aid and has been at the university for the past 35 years. She's also a Waterloo graduate from the English Language and Literature program in our Faculty of Arts.
Big round of applause. There we go.
Thanks, Iman and Dennis. Grade 10s, for those of you who are in grade 10, my son is actually only 2 years ahead of you. Andre, when you were talking about health sciences, I didn't like hearing that the averages went up because he's waiting on his admission offer. He actually got an offer to kinesiology, but his number one choice is health sciences. So fingers crossed that he's going to get an offer. So I wanted to talk to you today about finances and how you will be financing your education. Oops, I hope I pressed the right button. Nope. There we go. So this screen, as you can see, has a lot of information on it, but I like to show this in one place just so you can see a lot of these numbers at the same time. So let's start at the top left corner with entrance scholarships and bursaries. So just a quick education on what are scholarships and what are bursaries. Scholarships are typically based on your grades. Bursaries are based on your financial need. There's some differences, but for the most part, that's how you can differentiate those. So we have entrance scholarships and bursaries. And as you can see there, we have merit scholarships, president's scholarships of distinction, and those are the marks there on the screen of, this would be your high school marks, your grade 12 high school marks, and when you get your offer of admission, you will also be offered one of these scholarships as well. These scholarships are given to you in your first and second term in your first year of study. And then we have entrance bursaries, as you can see there. They range between $1,000 and $5,000, and they're also given to you in your first term and your second term in your first year. Those entrance bursaries you do have to apply for. And as I mentioned, they're based on your financial need. So you may have applied by the deadline in January, and those entrance bursaries open up in February, and they're open until, the application is open until about April. So just keep that in mind when you are applying, because you may not have actually received an offer yet to Waterloo, but the deadline is there. So you can go ahead and apply for those, the bursary, even if you haven't received an offer yet to Waterloo. Then moving down on the page, you'll see our tuition there, and you'll see a big range. And that's because some programs don't cost as much as other programs. So if you're looking into, say, the Faculty of Arts, Environment, Science, and some of our math programs, they're more on the lower end. And then Faculty of Engineering and our Computer Science program is more on the higher end. As Iman was talking about, she's a co-op student here with us. Our co-op program, if you decide to go that route, is a great way to finance your education. These are the figures that you could make in your first year. As well, you'll see 90% on the screen. So last year, the year, frankly, that we're in right now, so the students that came in September 2024, 90% of them received either an entrance scholarship or an entrance bursary, or they received both. So those are good stats. So then on the right side of this screen, you'll see our living expenses. If you decide to live in one of our residences, we have single rooms, double rooms, and as well as our suite style rooms. For our single and double rooms, a meal plan is offered as well. And with our meal plans, you can either choose between light, medium, and hearty. So those residences are kind of your typical dorm style residences that you would expect a university to have, where you have a room, you have the cafeteria, you have living areas, you have sort of study areas. And then our suite style is a little more like apartments where they have a kitchen and a living area and bedrooms. And those you have the option to not take part of the meal plan, and you can make your own food in your kitchen there. And then as well, something more to consider is your personal expenses monthly and your books and supplies as well. There it is. I should hang on to this. All right. So let's talk a little bit about where you're going to find the funding for your education. Possibly your parents have been saving, whether they've put it into an RESP, a registered education savings plan, or they have a bank account where they're saving. Student savings, if you have a part-time job or maybe a full-time job in the summertime. As I mentioned, scholarships and awards and bursaries, we're going to be getting into that a little bit more in the next slides, as well as we've already talked about. Co-op earnings are a great opportunity as well. OSAP, the Ontario Student Assistance Program, is an option as well. And for those who are out of province, every province has a financial aid program similar to OSAP. And for those who are from out of province, you apply within your home province. Also, we have a work-study program here at the university, and pretty much all Ontario universities have work-study, and it allows you to have part-time jobs here on campus and get paid that way while you're in class. Also, you may want to look into a student line of credit, and that is through your bank. And that's something that's really nice to kind of have on hand, pre-approved, and use it in case you need it. It's sort of good to have just in your back pocket in case something comes up. I also wanted to mention an organization called Points for School. And Points for School is an interesting organization where they actually take your Aeroplan points, and anybody can actually contribute to that. So if you have, extended family members who have lots of Aeroplan points, you can use that to pay for your tuition and your living expenses. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about scholarships. As I mentioned earlier, scholarships are based on grades. And they are at Waterloo. If for the entrance scholarships that we were already talking about, it's automatic consideration. So it means you don't have to apply. We will do the work for you. And when you have submitted your application, we will figure it out for you based on your marks and based on how much we're going to be able to offer you for a scholarship. Some are based on a combination of grades and also include your extracurricular activities. And these scholarships are also in the faculties as well. So our faculties have scholarships that they will offer you either entrance scholarships or as well in your first, second, third, fourth year. So many of those don't require an application, but some do require an application. And these are available for domestic and international students. So domestic, we call them domestic, and I'm not sure how many of you know that terminology, but it really just means you're Canadian. And here's the URL for our database that shows all of the scholarships that we have to offer. And in the database, you will see which ones require an application and which ones don't. Okay, so bursaries. They're based on financial need, as I mentioned. They're like a grant, so you don't need to repay them, which is fantastic. And an application is required, as I mentioned. And we take your OSAP information in order to be able to assess your bursary. So we look at income that your parents have, income that you're bringing in, expenses that you have, and then we offer as many bursaries as we possibly can to students. And international bursaries are also available for international students, and they're considered in second year and above, largely because Canadian study permits require that students who are international students have the first year funding available to them to show that they can pay for their education in their first year. So I want to talk a little bit more about OSAP. And as I think probably many of you know, it's a government program run through the National Student Loan Service Center. And you can receive either loans or grants or both. Loans you have to repay, and it's interest-free, and you need to start repaying them after you've been graduated for 6 months. Grants, you don't have to repay. So, even if you're not really sure if you are going to want to take OSAP, it's good to apply anyway, because who knows, you might get a grant. And you can choose grant-only options. So let's just say you have received a grant and a loan. You can just choose to take the grant and not the loan if that's what you choose to do. OSAP criteria changes yearly. So in 2 years, when you're applying to Waterloo, the criteria may change a little bit. So I wanted to just include some URLs for you that you may be interested in taking a look at. First to our University of Waterloo, where we have, as I mentioned, our database for all our scholarships that are available to you. Also Scholarships Canada. So the next few bullets are a listing of external scholarships that you could apply to. Scholarships Canada, Wyconic, Ontario University's info, OSCA, which is the Ontario School the Ontario School Counselors Association, and then the Financial Consumer Agency of Canada has good kind of money management skills because I put this up here because students sometimes receive OSAP. They're on their own for the first time. They receive some money from OSAP, maybe scholarships and bursaries, and the inclination is to go ahead and treat yourself. But it's good to kind of save that money because you're going to need it for your education. So I thought I would put that up there too. Okay, so that's it for me. I will be around to help answer any questions either here at the Q&A or in the hub later. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nancy. That was amazing and super helpful for everybody to know. Next up, what acronym are we working with again? Places. There we go. We're almost there. So next up is experience. What kind of academic or non-academic experiences do you want to have as part of your university journey? What kind of clubs, entertainment, extracurriculars, what sports are there? What kind of community involvement can you have? And also those academic involvements as well. And so no better way to do that than let's talk to some current Waterloo students.
Yes, so we have Rova and Annie. We are so lucky to have them joining us to talk about their student experience. So we'll get up here and do a little podcast style. You'll see what me and Dennis do on the regular.
It'll be like a little live podcast kind of setup going on.
Yeah.
And a big shout out to Carlos for helping us with the stools here. And just the mics.
Okay, Rova and Annie, do we want to start with a bit of an introduction? Rova, maybe you can go first. Just like your name, program. Oh, yes.
Hello, hello. Hi, everyone. My name is Rova. I'm in my 3rd year of health sciences here at Waterloo.
Hello, everybody. My name is Annie. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm in my final year of biology with a minor in East Asian Studies.
Nice. Thank you for being here and being able to talk with our students or with future students today. Kind of maybe this is a while ago. It's been a couple of years, but why did you choose the University of Waterloo? Why did you want to come here?
Yeah, so I'm in a co-op program, and you will probably hear this from a lot of Waterloo students, but co-op is really what attracted me to Waterloo. I knew that I wanted to do something that had to do with health, and health sciences really does check off that box for me. But it's health is so broad. Does that mean becoming a doctor or doing research? Or there's it's really broad, so many things that you can do with health. And so I felt like a co-op program would be especially helpful to get some experience while I'm still here. And it really has paid off so far.
Awesome. I'm kind of along the same lines. I'm actually from out of province, so I actually moved across the country to be at the University of Waterloo. I started university in 2020, which means middle of the pandemic. I had no idea what was going on, didn't know what I wanted to do or who I wanted to be, but I knew that I love biology. So I was like, biology, Waterloo Co-op, that sounds like the perfect place for me.
And where did you come from out of province?
I'm from Alberta, so I grew up in Calgary.
That's awesome. And we have a lot of students here today who are probably doing some research into universities right now. So I wanted to ask you guys, when you were in high school, what did you find most useful when doing research into universities?
Honestly, I think we've already heard about all the different resources that the University of Waterloo itself puts out. That's really where I found myself, on different university websites, looking at what the schools themselves have to say. But I also would try to find people who are in my program of interest or my school of interest. So whether that's on online forums or through Instagram or LinkedIn, whatever it may be, because it's also nice to hear from people's experiences and what they thought about the program. And so I even had first year students or grade 12 students reach out to me hey, can you tell me a little bit about the health science sciences program. I'm curious about it. So honestly, what I did is spending a lot of time on these websites, looking at the resources that the universities themselves put out, but also seeing if I could reach out to people who are in the programs themselves.
Wow, so I'm kind of the opposite. I remember when I was looking into it, I was overwhelmed. I was scared. I was like, oh my gosh, there's so much information out there. What I found really helpful is a lot of big universities actually came to my high school and we did little like lunchtime learning sessions. I think a lot of you folks will probably have them at your high schools too. I love those sessions just because it made it a lot more digestible for me to not only learn about the university that I want to go to, but they just made me feel a lot better about what choices I had as well.
And even backstage, we were talking about how you trapped one of the Waterloo reps for an extra hour after the event ended. So
it was really funny. They were like, I'm so sorry, but I have to go to my next high school. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
And hopefully that's kind of what we've done with the podcast, is try to answer those questions in a virtual format so you can get reliable information right then and there instead of maybe going to Reddit or those other areas. But in high school, did you know exactly what you wanted to go into and what you wanted to study, or did that continue to change as you progressed through high school? And did you have any thoughts of changing your program once you actually got to university?
So in my case, I always knew it would be something in sciences. It's kind of just how like my parents were like, "Oh, do something in science." I'm like, "Yeah, you know what, science is cool." But I actually didn't apply for university until like the day before it was due. Like I was stalling for so long. But I feel like deep down, I always knew it would be health, just because like I like helping people, like learning about cells in the body and those kinds of things. And health is just so universal. Like there's so many ways you can help people. So on the surface, no, I did not know what I'd wanted to do, but I actually I knew it would only ever really be in health in my case. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'm the exact same. I had a turbulent application period. I'm the opposite. I applied the day that applications actually open. And because I applied across the country, those deadlines were like super hard to keep track of. I had a spreadsheet. It was a whole thing. But I once again chose biology. I actually applied to Waterloo for kinesiology as well, and I got into that program. But I spent the longest time trying to decide between the two, but I was along the same lines. I love science. I also have a love for humanities. That's why I chose East Asian Studies as my minor. But I also did love how Waterloo would let you do a little bit of both. So yeah, biology, I was like, why not? And I can add on my interests in the background as well.
And thank you so much for that insight into why you guys made your decisions. Now, the transition from high school to university, that is definitely a change. Did you guys feel like there was a big difference? What was the biggest difference? Did you find it to be harder, easier? What was that transition like for you guys?
It's definitely a jump. My high school had about like I think 1,200 people, and then on campus there's like 33,000. So a lot of people on campus. And then one of the main things that I'll point on as a difference is like the syllabus. I feel like syllabi, they do exist in high school, but like no one actually looks at them. Like they're not important, right? In university, the first thing I learned is like, wow, I need to read my syllabus. I need to put those dates into my calendar. And so that was like the main adjustment, like because essentially in university, you're given all your deadlines, all your dates, like tests, assessments, everything, you know that right from jump. And so that kind of can sometimes feel like overwhelming. Like, I have like a million assignments, but they're spread across the 4 months. The nice thing about it though, is that there's nothing that actually can surprise you because you know everything right from jump, you know when everything's going to be. But in first year, and sometimes even now, that was definitely overwhelming. But I was really just giving myself a lot of grace with first year. Like, this is new, like new environment, new academics. So everything here, like I'm adjusting for. So yeah, a lot of grace definitely for first year for me.
I think time management was definitely something that I think I'm learning even now. Being able to hold myself accountable for things, I think was a very big difference in university. Like in high school, if you miss a test or you forget to hand in something, your teachers are right there saying like, "Hey, don't forget you have this deadline." But in university, so much of it is completely on you. Like not only is some like finance something you'll have to think about, where you're living next year, what you're doing for co-op, but you also have to keep yourself accountable for the classes that you're taking. Once again, like first year is super overwhelming. You're like in 5 classes, maybe even more if you take labs. But all those deadlines are all on you. But do not worry, like not only do you have resources like we talked about, but you also have upper year students who have been in your shoes, and they're an amazing resource that kind of help you through your first year of university.
Yeah, for sure. They totally act as mentors. And especially if you're living on campus in a residence, then you can get paired up with some upper year students that are in similar programs as you, and they do act as your upper year mentor, which is great. And stepping away just a bit from the academics, what do you do outside the classroom? What kind of clubs are you part of? What are some activities that you like to do? Even just things within the city, perhaps?
So in terms of extracurriculars for me, right now I'm actually part of a Cuban salsa club. For context, I had never danced Cuban salsa a day in my life up until next summer, and I was like, "There's a club that offers it on campus. Why not try it out?" And so now I'm a teaching assistant for the club, which is really cool. But there're just so many different like random clubs that you would never even think of that exist on campus. Lots of different ways to get involved. For me, also last term I did a language exchange club. I really do like languages. I actually did French immersion for 12 years, and so we got to meet with other people, talk about languages, learn and teach each other different languages. And then also right now I'm also doing peer mentorship for health science students.
That's awesome. I think one of my favorite things to do kind of outside the university is just explore all the cafes and bakeries that we have in the region. Like Kitchener, Waterloo, two cities kind of in one. There's so many amazing places for students to be. Because I came from a pretty big city, I was like, I don't know if I'd really enjoy Waterloo because in comparison, it's a smaller city than Calgary, but I like had really nothing to worry about because it's so student oriented. There's festivals like once a month. One of my favorite ones is actually in September. It's called Lumen. It's like a really big light festival. You can just walk up and down uptown. There's bunch of food, bunch of awesome activities to do. But on campus, actually, I'm kind of along the same lines as you. I decided to join archery club because why not? You know, like it's a new thing I've always wanted to do. And all these years later, now I'm an archery range master. So you really get to make your way up in the clubs that, you know, you've wanted to try.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. And then I know both of you are campus ambassadors, but Annie, you got some pretty cool charms on the lanyard there. So do you want mind just like talking about them and showing them off a little bit?
Oh yeah, I've got a lot of swag, folks. I've been a student ambassador for about 3 years now, so this has been a long time coming. I've got a couple of like tour pins. I've done almost I think 80 tours for the university now. I got a really big button from the Ontario University Fair or OUF that you folks should definitely participate in. Super super fun. What else do I got? I have an iGEM pin. If anyone's interested in like synthetic biology design teams, they compete in Paris every year. That's something really cool. Oh my gosh, there's event pins. I have a Warriors pin. I have a bunch of arts pins because for open house, like the Faculty of Arts is so incredible with the swag they give out. I actually also swiped a Porcelino sticker at the door. So yeah, don't be afraid to like explore your options here at the university.
Yeah, for sure. We have some really amazing mascots, so look into all the different faculty mascots. I promise you will not be disappointed. But changing course a little bit, I wanted to ask you guys, how do you meet people here on campus? It's a big school, and we know there's lots of opportunities to make friends, but how did you guys do so?
So I'll circle back to the clubs. That's where I meet like some of my friends. I have friends that I made through Cuban salsa, but even in class, I know no one really wants to like sometimes people don't want to just talk to people next to them, but I would recommend that you do it. Like that's how I've actually met people. And even if it's just for that term, you have like a little study buddy or someone who's taking the same courses as you. Also, there's something called tutorials within universities, basically like a smaller class section. So instead of the large, maybe 200, 250 student lecture, it's like a smaller classroom. And that's also where I made a lot of my friends. Yeah, that's where I've met people.
Getting involved is something that I highly encourage. I've also been an orientation leader for 4 years, and a lot of my like faculty specific friends, friends that I not only study together with, but have classes together, I've met them all through orientation as an orientation leader. I've met them in so many corners, like with archery, one of my closest friends I met at archery, and she later actually became a student ambassador because of me. And even once again in classes, like sometimes I know it's really scary, but you just have to like sit beside somebody and be like, hey, I don't have a friend in this class. Do you want to be my friend in this class?
No, like my current roommates I met through going up to some girl in one of my classes and being like, "Hey, do you want to be friends?" And then she asked me to move in with her that day, which is crazy, but it works for me. So I wouldn't recommend it for everyone, but suss it out a little bit.
And super, and just last question that we have for you. If there's one piece of advice that you can leave to the audience for future students that are just thinking about applying to university in general, what would that advice be?
I do want to circle back to that grace point that I mentioned for first year. Like, I do remember being in high school and this whole thing felt like very stressful, as Annie was saying as well. Like, so many decisions. Like, what do you mean I'm 15? Why am I thinking about my entire life? Right. But just like give yourself grace with that. Definitely do research. Definitely like put the effort, be proactive as you can. But remember that you don't need to have every single thing figured out like right now in this very moment. I'm in health sciences. I love health sciences. I still don't know exactly where I'm going to be in 2 years, but right now and where I am, I'm putting my best foot forward. I'm putting like my best efforts into whatever I'm doing. And so that's kind of what I would advise for you as well.
So I'm a panicker and I panic a lot when I was applying for university. I think one of my greatest advice to give is just to be confident. Like everything will turn out okay. I know when I was like applying and when I was in your folks' shoes, I was like, my life is over. The world is gonna end. I'm not gonna get anywhere. I'm not gonna be anybody. But you don't have to worry. Like your experiences and your passions will definitely show and you will be okay.
Yeah, that's amazing advice. Big round of applause for our students today. Thank you so much. Come back. Big round of applause for Carlos. Yeah. Okay. So one more time, what acronym are we working with? Like I said, very last one. So now we're looking at supports. So you really want to take a look at what kind of supports will be offered at whatever university you're looking at, whether that is through academic support, whether that's through professors, teaching assistants, academic advisors, and counselors. Maybe it could be mental and physical support through therapists, psychologists, as well as physicians, nurses, dentists, and pharmacists that might be directly on that campus. Or maybe it's even career development services, which actually help you to get to your next part and next phase in your career. Or maybe even you're considering accessibility services that offer academic modifications and customizations for students who need it most. And at Waterloo, we're also very proud to have our Waterloo Indigenous Student Center, also known as WISC, which helps to provide cultural, personal, and academic support to our Indigenous students.
Yes, so one last time, what's that acronym? Yes, okay. Last time we're gonna make you do it. Okay, so now that you guys know the 6 pillars of what to really consider when it comes to starting your university journey, make sure to keep those in mind when you are asking questions and doing research. We also have this acronym on the little place cards that are available in the hallways, so make sure to grab one of those because these are really key pillars that you're gonna want to remember throughout this journey.
And what are some additional resources that you can access as students and as well as parents and guardians? Your guidance counselors are number one. When you go to high school, if you ever have a question, connect with your guidance counselor. They're pretty good at answering them. If they can't answer your question, they will direct you to those Waterloo or let's say university reps, and then we can help answer those questions that you have. There is also an important website, Ontario University's info. There is a little URL or like search bar when you get on that website, and it actually helps you to narrow down those selections of what programs you want to go into based on what universities offer them. Open houses and campus tours are great ways for you to see if it's somewhere you can envision being yourself for the next 4 to 5 years and what it's really like being a student at that university or institution. And then also Ontario University's Fair, which we just heard about earlier. So that's OUF. It happens annually in downtown Toronto at the MTCC. And that's where all 23 universities will be. You can get their brochure and swag items, and you can also talk to all of the professors, students, staff, and reps that are there to answer any questions that you need or just have any curiosities about. And lastly, especially for our local schools, we do have high school visits where we do bus in schools to the University of Waterloo, and we have a fun, interactive day with all of them. So those are just some resources to keep in mind.
Another really great resource I want to point out is the Missing Manual, which is Waterloo's blog. It's got really important information and insider information that you're not going to find on our brochures because it's written by current students for future students. I've written some of those articles, and there's a lot of really great information on there about student life here at Waterloo, careers, co-op, and even high school success. So there's advice on how to be successful in high school right now to make that transition to university even easier. So be sure to check that out. Also, again, we have March open house on Saturday, March 22nd. Be sure to sign up and come. You'll get a little bit more insight into the University of Waterloo, You might be able to do a tour, talk to some students, talk to some staff, and you can ask any questions that maybe you don't have today, but ruminate throughout the next couple weeks on March Open House.
And importantly, during this March Open House, Iman and I will actually be stationed somewhere to record a live podcast. So if you do have questions and want to be featured on our podcast, or even just get an autograph from us, you have the opportunity to meet us in person coming up in about a month's time. But that pretty much wraps up our presentation for today. If you do have questions, let's say comes to your mind after today, feel free to send an email to liaison@uwaterloo.ca. I want to see everybody's cell phone. You can take a picture of it. It is also being recorded as well. But either myself or one of my colleagues would be happy to answer your questions that you have. Please make sure to follow us on YouTube as well as Instagram, and also visit our webpage, uwaterloo.ca/future. And that brings us finally to our Q&A portion of the presentation. So we will kindly bring up Andre from admissions, Nancy, as well as our students, Roba and Annie. And any questions that you have from the crowd, we will repeat it or relay it to all of our special guests and get all those questions answered. Afterwards, there is also still the fair portion that runs until 8:30. We hope everybody enjoyed. So thank you so much for your time. Any questions for our experts? Yes. Yeah, so Andre, anything about IB?
So the question was for those that are online, information for those that go to an IB school. So if you're in Ontario, your IB school will give us your grades in the Ontario course codes. So we get advanced functions, calculus, and vectors. So it's a percentage grade, the same as all other schools. If you're in an IB school outside of Ontario, it's generally reported on the 1 to 7 scale. Sometimes it's a predicted grade, and we just turn that into a percentage. So you're set either way. An important thing to know is that IB students are treated the same as all other students. It's a great program. Where it does have a slight difference is that if you're doing higher level courses, it often covers first year material. And so if you're admitted, again, based on the percentages and the comparisons that we do across all students, if you have a higher level course and you get the appropriate grade, you can get a transfer credit potentially. So again, most programs you can get up to 3 transfer credits. So that's the bit of a bonus with IB. You don't have to take the transfer credit. The way I usually look at it is if you can do calculus in your sleep and you got a perfect 7 out of 7, maybe take the credit. But if it's a core course and if you had to work really hard, actually retaking that course in first year, there is going to be new material, and it's going to be one course where you can be a little bit more relaxed. It'll help boost your average and just kind of let you settle into university. So it's a very personal decision. Don't just look at transfer credits and saving money purely. Think about your own journey and what's going to set you up for success.
Yes.
Yeah, so because we have 23 universities in Ontario, instead of you having to apply to each university individually, we have a central hub. And so they list information about every program that's available in Ontario, all the deadlines. So it's all in one place. And when you go there, you can apply to, again, up to 3 for the basic fee that you pay. You can add additional choices on top of that. So once you've applied, they will send all that information and all of your grades from that point forward directly to the universities and to the programs to which you applied. Yeah, so it's a one-stop shop. Yeah.
Yes, in the front. Yeah, so are there any volunteer opportunities for grade 11 or 12 local students?
Might be too high. Oh, we're good. So I think it really depends on what the student wants to do. I actually have friends who, in their grade 11 and 12 year, volunteered at labs here at the university. So if you're someone who's really interested in science research, or honestly any lab here at the university, it'll all say on their specific websites, or you can even email the professor. Opportunities may exist. You'll just might have to reach out for them if you're interested in like the research kind of stream.
Yep.
Let's do right here.
So the question was, we mentioned that we publish our expected admission requirements. So it's based on the last few years and especially the year prior, because that's the best indication that we have. But that's why we say low or mid. If we did have a sudden surge, like I mentioned in health sciences, where you were talking about, over a period of just 1 year, we had 168% increase in applications, and no one would have predicted that. And so that did drive up the minimum average. That's an outlier. That's not the norm. Usually we're pretty close to what's published. So it does depend. Sometimes it might be a little lower as well. But we're trying to give you a realistic sense of it's worth to pay for that application. We don't want you to waste your time. If you're a low 80s student and you're applying to engineering at Waterloo and one of the programs is high 80s, there's probably another engineering program in Ontario that's low 80s. And we'd want you to apply to that program so that you can pursue what it is you're excited about. This is a soft sell. We don't want you to come to Waterloo at all costs. We hope that many of you will be here, but again, we do need to fill those spots, and we're very fortunate to be a top world-ranked university, so we draw a lot of amazing students. And that shows actually, we don't talk a lot about retention in grade 10 family night, but typically our faculties have over 90% retention to graduation. So that means if you start at Waterloo, you're probably going to graduate. We really are careful at the start, but our students have a great experience. They work really hard and they go on to great things afterwards. Sorry, you mean the grades that we use? We do a mixture of grade 11 and 12 grades. We usually want to see at least half of your grade 12 courses before we make a decision. And again, it's all about where the cutoffs are. So if you've got a 98 average and we are typically cutting off in the low 80s, we're probably going to give an offer out earlier, right? But the closer you are to where the cutoff is, the longer we're likely to wait. Everybody gets a decision in the final round, which happens at the end of April, early May. At that point, we have at least a midterm grade for every single course. So if you get an early offer, it doesn't mean that you're a better student. Sometimes it just means I have more information. Maybe you took more of the required courses in your first semester. But whether you're the first student to get an offer or the last student, you have a guaranteed spot as long as you confirm by the deadline. So everybody has the same rights, whether they got an early offer or a late offer. It really is just a function of what program did you apply, where were your grades. So don't get caught up too much in the early offer is better. It's nice to know, but often the most competitive areas do more offers later because they need to look at the whole applicant pool and make a really informed decision. And that's fair to you as well. You wouldn't want to have a first come, first served situation happening across the world, right? We're looking at students from all over the world. We want to look at everybody and do a fair and equitable decision.
Question over here, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, the good thing is in Canada, it's largely a public system. And even where we have a lot of private schools, we have accredited teachers. So we have good teachers that overall do a great job. They work closely with all of you. Many of your teachers spend more time with you than sometimes your own family does, right? They know their students really well. And all of our data suggests that students do have pretty equal outcomes regardless of the school they're at. It actually, one of the things that we see is that it has less to do with the school you're going to. It's more about who are you? How hard do you work? What is your time management skills? Do you have a supportive family and network? Those things contribute more than which school did you attend. So again, yes, there are some schools or some courses, some teachers that are stronger than others. But our experience is when we admit students, again, with over 90% graduating, that means our school system and the school systems across the world, when we look at them, do really well. So we don't have a ranking system. You have heard perhaps about engineering and the adjustment factor. That is a unique situation because engineering has 5 required courses. So that's one difference. Almost everybody's taking exactly the same courses, no matter where they're studying. And they compare the entering average to how students are doing at the end of first year. It's a small factor in the decision, but it does allow them to have another layer in addition to grades, in addition to the supplementary form of the admission information form. But honestly, I'm not just saying this. Don't worry about your school. Don't worry about your rankings. Everybody will say, my teacher's the hardest, my school's the hardest. If we went by that, then everybody would be right. At the end of the day, like I said, it really is about you as the students that are in this room and the families. If you work hard, you'll get the grades you need. And again, it doesn't have to be Waterloo at all costs. Cast that net and sit down with your family, hopefully in like you said, right at the very end there, in late April, and you can decide based on your scholarships, based on the size of the university, you can decide what's the right fit. And come for these visits, do some tours. Don't just tour Waterloo, tour some other institutions, check it out, and you'll make a good choice.
Yes.
Maintains that percentage up to 12, the guaranteed admission in your college?
Yeah, so if you have an offer and you accept by the deadline, you have a guaranteed spot. So if we have had where we had like when we had the double cohort year, this is a long time ago, but we used to have a fifth high school year in Ontario, and it was kind of uncharted territory. We were guessing on how many students would say yes. And we were also taking more students because we were collapsing 2 years together. We had more students than we anticipated. We ended up adding some extra beds into our residences and doing different things, but we guaranteed everybody who said yes a place. And that's something that we take very seriously. So we're very fortunate because we have Wilfrid Laurier, University of Waterloo, Conestoga College. There's actually as much student housing in this region as there is in the rest of Canada. That's kind of a neat little factoid for you. That being said, though, we have a big campus and we have a lot of residence choices. So we guarantee you a place to live. And actually, we've been able to extend that beyond first year. But we don't guarantee, it's not just for first year students. New students are guaranteed a place to live. But we haven't needed to extend that because as our student ambassadors and other students will say, generally what happens is you meet some great friends. And because there's lots of student housing around campus, you'll often move into a student house or apartment, and it's close to campus. But if you choose to stay in residence, many of my roommates in my upper years actually alternated because they were in co-op. They sometimes found it easier just to live in residence. That's still an option.
I think that's all the time we have for the Q&A. So once again, round of applause for our guests and speakers today. And if you do still have a question and you want it to be answered, make sure to chat with our people and chat with our staff and students that are in the atrium or the hub over there during the last 30 minutes of the fair portion. But thank you, everybody, for tuning in tonight.